السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم تقبل منا الصلاة والصيام، اللهم تقبل منا رمضان، اللهم تسلمه منا كاملا غير منقوص. اللهم ربنا اغفر ذنوبنا، اللهم اجبر كسرنا، اللهم اغسل حوبتنا واغفر زلاتنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا مقبلون عليك فلا تردنا. اللهم إنا نسألك أن تبارك لنا في رابع ليالي رمضان. اللهم ربنا اكتبنا في هذه الليلة من عتقائك من النار. اللهم اعتق رقابنا ورقاب آبائنا وأمهاتنا وإخواننا وأخواتنا وأزواجنا وذرياتنا من النار، وادخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار. اللهم أصلح أحوالنا وأحوال المسلمين والمسلمات في كل مكان يا رب العالمين. اللهم فك الكرب عن إخواننا المستضعفين في غزة وفي فلسطين. اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم، اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم، اللهم انصرهم نصرا عزيزا مؤزرا، اللهم انصرهم نصرا عزيزا مؤزرا. اللهم يا ربنا لا يخفى عليك شيء من أمرهم. يا ربنا إننا نسألك أن تدخل الرعب على من خوف وأدخل الرعب على إخواننا وأهلنا في غزة يا رب العالمين. اللهم إننا نسألك يا ربنا أن تصلح أحوال المسلمين والمسلمات في كل مكان. ولي أمورنا خيارنا ولا تولي أمورنا شرارنا، ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك ولا يرحمنا. اللهم لا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا، اللهم لا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا. اللهم اختم لنا بخير أجمعين، والحقنا بالصالحين، واجعلنا من ورثة جناتك جنات النعيم يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين آمين. In the Isha Khatira today, we were discussing the verse that relates to the universal divine law for today, which is Sunnatullah fil Asbabi wal Musabbabat. The verses that we were discussing from Surah Al-Kahf were about Dhul Qarnayn. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. Before this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. We established Dhul Qarnayn, and we made him dominant in the land. And the mark of his dominance was that Allah made the means at his disposal, and He gave him access to and the ability to do things and follow through with them. And along with this, he actually did follow those asbab. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. And in the morning we were talking about how al-akhdh bil-asbab teaches the believer the importance of following process. And sometimes process is not glamorous, it's not easy, it's not something easy for us to accept, that I can't say certain things or do certain things when I want to do them because it's not the right time. But when we look at the seerah and the life of the Prophet ﷺ, we find that the Prophet ﷺ was in this position throughout his entire nubuwah and prophethood. We said there was a point in time when the Prophet ﷺ could only look at some of his companions who were being tortured and say, Sabran ala Yasir, فَإِنَّ مَوْعِدَكُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. He saw his companions, Ammar and Sumayya and the father of Sayyidina Ammar, Sayyidina Yasir, being tortured. And he said, be patient, O family of Yasir, your appointment's in Jannah. That was a reality for the Prophet ﷺ, and no one would dare say the Prophet ﷺ was weak when he needed to do that. But the Prophet ﷺ teaches us strategy, teaches us patience, and teaches us true trust in Allah Azza wa Jal. There's a beautiful hadith the Prophet ﷺ says that's often misunderstood. The Prophet ﷺ says, لو أنكم توكلتم على الله حق توكله لرزقكم كما يرزق الطير تغدو خماصا وتعود بطانا. Prophet ﷺ says in this hadith, if you truly had a sense of tawakkul on Allah, Allah would give you and provide for you, just like He provides for the bird. It goes out hungry and then it comes back having earned its belly full. And the misunderstanding happens, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that I should trust in Allah and I'm going to find the rizq at my doorstep and it's going to come my way? No, that's a whole misunderstanding of what the bird's doing. The bird is a very hard worker. The bird goes out in the day searching for its provisions, and it continues to fly and travel from tree to tree, to area to area to area, Similar to it, the bee. These creations of Allah Azza wa Jal teach us the importance of al-akhdh bil-asbab, of following the means, of doing everything that's at my disposal. And then putting the trust in Allah Azza wa Jal after I've done whatever is at my fingertips, whatever is within my means. So this example that the Prophet ﷺ gives us about the bird actually encourages us that, we need to be hard workers. The Sayyidina Umar says this in the hadith, and we said this in the Fajr Khatira. He says, لا يقعد أحدكم عن طلب الرزق ثم يقول يا رب يا رب. None of you should sit down and not seek your provisions and then raise your hands and say, oh Allah, oh Allah. فقد علمتم أن السماء لا تمطر ذهبا ولا فضة. You know that the sky doesn't rain gold and silver, and that money doesn't grow on trees even though we wish it did. That's not how it works. So al-akhdh bil-asbab is actually tempered between two things. I don't depend on the means, I depend on Allah. But part of my dependence on Allah Azza wa Jal is to follow the means that He put before me to follow. Now this is because Allah Azza wa Jal has made this dunya follow processes. And you see this in the Quran. The Quran says, وَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَأَخْرَجَ بِهِ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ رِزْقًا لَكُمْ. Does Allah Azza wa Jal need rain to come down from the heavens for fruits to be provided for us? Allah doesn't need rain. Allah doesn't need to wait for crops to grow, for seasons to change. Does Allah need that? No, He doesn't. He could have just as easily made the reality of dunya where you wake up one morning and you see what are the fruits that are going to fall from the sky today. Oh, cherries today, we have apples tomorrow, oranges the day after, watermelons, that'll break your head. But the point is, imagine if that's the reality, does Allah need to wait for things to follow and run their course? No, but this dunya follows processes. Even in terms of our growth. Today, I can't. Tomorrow, day after, the month after that, maybe I can. And that's the part of the growth of the human being. The human being knows this very well because his whole life is centered on following the means. Imagine if a child was never tended to, cared for, never taught how to walk, talk, crawl, never taught anything, just utterly abandoned. How's this child going to look like? How is this child going to grow if we don't follow the means in facilitating growth for this child, right? But our whole life is centered on growing through a process. So how can I accept everything to have a process, and then when it comes to a trial and an affliction, I just want things to change like that? No, it can't be like that. No, abadan. No, that's not at all the case. We, as an ummah, are trained and conditioned, hey, you know what? You do what's in your power. After that, if things don't come as you intended them to come, don't think that Allah has abandoned you. Right? وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَدَ مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. The Prophet ﷺ is told, Allah hasn't abandoned you, Allah hasn't despised you. Right? When we see what's happening in Gaza, and we see not 10,000, not 20,000, not 30,000, Allahu alam, how many thousands are going to die before this thing finishes? Right? Does this mean that Allah Azza wa Jal has abandoned me when I follow the means and I don't get the results? No, abadan. That's not the way it is. So this is the balancing act, that I have true trust in Allah and I know that I am under His supervision, as Allah Azza wa Jal told His Prophet, وَاصْبِرْ لِحُكْمِ رَبِّكَ فَإِنَّكَ بِأَعْيُنِنَا. Be patient for Allah's command. You're under our supervision. I know that Allah's going to take care of it. And I know in order for me to gain His rida, I need to take care of whatever He put at my disposal and at my fingertips. I don't depend on it. I don't think the doctor is going to heal me. I don't think my employer is going to save me. I don't think that this person is going to be able to alleviate this difficulty or that. No, it's in Allah's hands. I know that. But I, as an individual, as a mu'min, I must do everything I can. We said in the morning one of the most toxic attitudes that may come about with what's happening in the ummah today is khalas, it's not in my hands and it'll never get better. And inshallah, when Imam Mahdi comes in the end of times, everything will be fixed. He's going to figure out everything. I'm just going to sit down on my couch here and I'm going to enjoy myself and I'm just going to relax. And then when I hear Imam Mahdi comes, khalas, ad-dunya kullaha hatinsalih, right? Imam Mahdi needs an ummah that's going to follow him. The Prophet ﷺ even himself, Prophet ﷺ could have been given victory from day one, but Allah Azza wa Jal wanted there to be Sahaba, companions, who supported him and championed him. This is قانون الأخذ بالأسباب. عدم الاعتماد عليها بل الاعتماد على الله عز وجل. لكن الإدراك الأسباب لا بد منها. I need to follow asbab. I need to consider them. Now, there's a misconception. I'm going to conclude with this. The Prophet ﷺ says, لن يدخل أحدكم الجنة بعمله. قالوا ولا أنت يا رسول الله قال ولا أنا إلا أن يتغمدني الله برحمة منه وفضل. Prophet ﷺ says this in the hadith. It's authentic hadith. None of you will enter Jannah by their actions. Some people come hard stop here. Oh, that's it. خلاص, that means it's in Allah's hands. And ربنا بيسر inshallah. خلاص, Allah's the one who's going to decide in Jannah. Doesn't matter what I do, right? Some people stop there, hard stop, but that's not the case. So the hadith goes on to say, even you, O Rasulullah, you're not going to enter Jannah except by Allah's rahmah and His mercy. He said, no, not even me, unless Allah has mercy upon me. But then when you look at the Quran, the whole Quran is filled with what? ادخلوا الجنة بما كنتم تعملون. That's the Jannah that you entered because of what? Because of your sacrifices, because of your hard work. Right? So this is the reality of the believer with al-akhadh bil-asbab. I need to follow them and I need to work hardest at achieving them, but then all in all, I don't depend on my mind. And I don't depend on other human beings, I depend on Allah Azza wa Jal. And I realize at any moment, if Allah doesn't want the fire to burn, it won't burn. If He doesn't want the knife to cut, it won't cut. And this is the lesson for today. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us a people who understand the true essence of tawakkul, and to make us an ummah that follows the asbab and has the patience to follow the asbab and follow the means. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma ameen. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Inshallah, we're going to have adhan now and then Salat al-Isha.